Welcome back to the channel. Now I'm still absolutely buzzing after England's win at Twickenham against Ireland through the boot of Marcus Smith with his last minute drop goal in the match. A brilliant feeling for all English fans who haven't had the greatest last few games and finally get back on track, and it was the performance that I'm really happy with for England. The result is obviously very important, and beating one of the best teams in the world does wonders for the team's confidence, but for me it was the way we played. We attacked the game, we didn't sit back and kick like we did in many of the other early games. So really happy with that English performance. And in today's video, I'm going to be assessing each of the players' performances for both England and Ireland. I wasn't expecting to go into scoring these players with an England win, so it'll be a slightly different dynamic in terms of scoring. But please do leave your thoughts in the comment section down below about my scores. I think it often depends on opinion and the way you see the game, so I'd be very interested to see what you have to say in the comments. Do you agree or do you disagree? But most importantly, put the reason why. I can imagine quite a few of the Irish supporters will be a little bit down in the dumps, albeit they do have a Six Nations title to play for next weekend. But I'd encourage you to sort of approach it with a level head. They only lost by a point and England did play well. So there were some good Irish performances amongst the ranks as well. So I'm going to start off with the front rows as always. I thought Ellis Genge had a really good performance. So he gets an 8 from me. And then a 7.5 for Jamie George, with Dan Cole getting a 6.5. Ellis Genge has been knocking on the door to start for England for quite a bit now, but Steve Borthwick has been favouring Joe Marler of recent, but Genge really proved in this game why he should start. That's really good ball carrying in there, so very happy with him. Jamie George at hooker had a bit of a mixed day with the line out. The English line out was better than the Irish, but it still wasn't perfect. But Jamie George had some really nice touches up through the middle, made a couple half breaks, and was really quite dynamic, which was good to see. Dan Cole on the tight head. He's never going to get the highest of scores because his around the park mobility isn't quite the same as the other props, but at scrum time he really did well. Not every scrum went England's way, but he held the fort together, I think is the way to put it, and a solid performance from Dan Cole. Moving over to the Irish front row, for me Porter gets a 7, Dan Sheehan gets a 6.5, and Furlong also gets a 7. Porter and Furlong were decent in the game, nothing sort of particularly amazing. Neither of them got over the ball as much as I've been used to seeing them do of recent, but solid performances. They didn't get dominated in the scrum. It was quite an even contest throughout the game. Dan Sheehan I had to drop his score down, unfortunately. He's one of my favourite players, which it sort of pains me to do, but the line out was really one of the major factors in which undid the Irish performance. They really did struggle there. So Dan Sheehan, whereas he'd be usually sitting at sort of a 7.5, I had to drop it down because of the line out. But around the field, Dan Sheehan was decent and did what he needed to do. In terms of the second rows, I think this was a real area of strength for England. I've gone for 7.5 for Itoje and an 8 for George Martin. Itoje was good in this game. Really competitive player. He's one of those players that fights for every single inch, especially in the air and the line out. George Martin was one of England's standout performers. Maybe he deserves an 8.5. I thought he added a real good bit of bulk, some real raw power, as well as being secure at the line out as well. I definitely saw an edge in physicality that we don't see with the likes of Chesham and Itoje, although Chesham really did have a good game as well. For Ireland, this is some of their lowest scoring positions on the team sheet for me. I've given Joe McCarthy a 5.5. A 6 for me, still a decent performance, so he just falls short of being a decent performance. And then Tyke Byrne for me, he still gets a 7. I thought with the line-out being poor, he still did perform reasonably well, was good in the rucks. And he had a real crucial intervention when the ball came out at the back of the English ruck on the Irish, sort of 2-3 metres out on the 5 metre line almost, and secured a good turnover there. So some good bits from Tyke Byrne, an intelligent player. Joe McCarthy didn't have a particularly bad day. He just didn't. He struggled at line out time really, and then he shot out the line, which enabled England through the hands of Sam Underhill, Itoje, and then onto Furbank to score on the corner. I think these sorts of defensive reads come with experience, and it's something he is lacking in, and he'll only learn from it. I still see Joe McCarthy as a player to hop on the plane for the Lions, so I'm sure he'll bounce back from this. He's been tremendous in the earlier rounds in the Six Nations, but didn't have his best day, albeit didn't have a horror show. In terms of the back rows, this is where it gets interesting. I've gone for Chesham with an 8, Sam Underhill with an 8.5, and then Benel, I don't like doing it, but I think he's pretty much as close as you can get to a 10. So just for the sake of it, Andy got man of the match. I'm going to give him a 10. Chesson was dynamic. We needed that extra line-out jumper to really disrupt the Irish line-out, as England did in this game. And Chesson showed some really good physicality, albeit not the most mobile number 6, considering he's usually a second row, was decent. Sam Underhill, what a player. Considering he's not had much game time for Bath this season, he's come into the team relatively fresh and put in some really good performances. He offloaded superbly to Itoje for the Furbank try, was a menace in the breakdown all day, tackled like his life depended on it, so really good from Sam Underhill. Benno, he did everything, meters made, jackals, tries, man of the match, he really did it all. One of the best English players. I'd actually cut out that rubbish, not one of the best English player at the moment, and I do have to question whether he would make his way somewhat near a World 15 at the moment. The Irish back row, this is an area which didn't go particularly well for them, but I'll give Omani a 6, mainly because of his yellow card. That was a real sucker punch to the Irish. A player that did actually turn up for me was Josh van der Fleer. He gets an 8.5, a very high scorer in a losing performance, with Caelan Doris getting a 7.5. Just touching on Doris, you never really see Doris have a bad game. He was solid throughout. Although Ireland lost, they only lost it in the last minute. If Ireland, Marcus Smith had missed that drop goal and then missed the penalty kick, we'd be saying Ireland did decent. So we can't completely flip the script because they lost. So Doris gets a 7.5 for me. As I said, Omani with the yellow card, he didn't particularly show up massively throughout the game. Not particularly poor, but didn't get as involved as I felt like he can do. And then Josh van der Fleer, I said something before the game about him really slipping off in terms of form since sort of a couple of years ago when he won World Player of the Year. He showed glimpses in this game, he really did, of why he should be spoken about in the World 15 picture, because he's a very, very good player. His work over the ball, his carrying was much better in this game, so I think he deserves an awful lot of credit. Maybe an 8 would be more sufficient is what I'm thinking, but I do think an 8.5 could be warranted if you see it through a slightly green lens. In terms of the back line, just drop my piece of paper, lovely. I've gone for an 8 for Mitchell, with George Ford for me getting a 6. Mitchell was good all game really. I think England have been crying out for a scrum half with a running game, and he really managed to get off the base of the ruck really quite nicely and play England into some space. So good stuff from Mitchell. George Ford got a 6. Maybe that's potentially generous or harsh, depending on which way you see it. I think George Ford, he missed, was it 8 points off the tee, something like that, which nearly came back to bite England if they hadn't scored the drop goal at the end. Albeit Crowley didn't have an impeccable performance off the tee, but Ford's had some not sitters, but some really kickable penalties that if you gave it to Tomas Ramos, you'd be running back to the halfway before he kicked it, sort of thing. So, and in attack, I don't think Ford managed to get England to switch on as much as they needed to. A lot of the attacks came from the counter-attack, came from the work of this man, Furbank, at full-back, but I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say on George Ford. In terms of Ireland, Jamison Gibson-Park, I think he needs a massive shout-out. He gets an 8 from me, and then I'll give Crowley a 6.5. Jamison Gibson-Park, he moved to wing throughout the game after the injury, and Ireland obviously went for a 6-2 split, so he had to move on to the wing. He had no choice, and I thought he did very, very well. I mean, he created the overlap for one of James Lowe's tries whilst playing on the wing. That's not his position, which is just incredible feat of rugby IQ and intelligence. So fair play to him. It shows that he's not just a scrum half. That's good. He's an all-round smart, clever, intelligent rugby player. So hats off to him. Crowley at 10, not particularly poor. I think he missed a tackle on Ollie Lawrence. That meant Ollie Lawrence scored. Wasn't an easy tackle, very tough one to make. Not amazing off the kicking tee. Missed a couple ones by quite some margin that were out on the touchline. Sometimes he does get them, so you have to hold him to that standard. But yeah, nothing particularly poor from Crowley. Just didn't really quite click. In terms of the centres for England, this wasn't England's strongest point. I think I'm going to give Lawrence a 7.5. And what am I going to give Slade? A 6.5. No, I'm going to give Slade a 7. I've just changed my mind. I think Slade wasn't particularly a standout in the game, but I think he was the glue that held it together. I think Henry Slade can be shone in quite a bad light due to the positions in which blitzing off the line in the same style that England do can really put him in some bad positions. So in terms of the system England play, he does a good job at doing whatever he can. Did get caught out a couple times, blitzing too hard, but a reasonable performance from Henry Slade. Then Ollie Lawrence scored his try. Some good dynamic running in there. Nothing to shock the world. Nearly did get a second try, albeit a knock-on from Furbank, but a decent performance for him. And in terms of Ireland, Bundy Aki, I think, had a really, really good game. He gets an 8 from me, with Henshaw coming in at a 7. I thought Bundy Aki had some really good running lines in there, some very powerful carries, and he was definitely one of the standout Irish performers. And if you felt Ireland were going to come back and win the game, he was one of those players in which was starting to step up, so fair play to him. In terms of the back threes, some really exciting stuff for England. I'm going to give Freeman an 8. I'm going to give Emmanuel Faber-Boso 8.5, and then I'm going to give George Furbank an 8. I thought Furbank at fullback, he gets a lot of stick. He plays a very high-risk game in terms of errors, handling errors, but when it clicks, it really does click, and he's been England's answer to making the attack function. So although he does make a decent few individual errors, which will only decrease as he gets more game time, he really did change the English attack. He came onto the ball at speed, run it from deep, so fair play to him. And he was the architect for not only his own try, but the first try from Ollie Lawrence as well. It was his pace that really created that, so fair play to him. Freeman bounced Calvin Nash, who I'm going to have to give a dash to. He went off early, so that was tough to see from an Irish point of view, but Freeman was very physical and had a very good game on the wing. And then Emmanuel Faber-Boso was the sort of spark England needed off the other wing. You don't quite get the same acceleration with Elliot Daly, so fair play to Emmanuel Faber-Boso for bringing that. Some really top stuff from him. And then we're going to move over to Ireland. James Lowe, what did I score him? Let's turn the page over. I gave James Lowe an 8. I thought James Lowe was one of the main Irish players which just kept fighting. He's got such high standards. His massive left boot got Ireland some brilliant field position, especially when he kicked it right to the touchline and Furbank took it out. Very well placed kick from Lowe, and then took his 2 tries very, very nicely. And then at fullback, Hugo Keenan, a decent performance from him. He gets a 7.5. Coming back from injury, I thought he covered the backfield well. He was really up against it, considering Ireland were sort of compromised with having to play players out of position in the backfield. But that was just my point of view. I thought he did cover the grass very, very nicely. In terms of the replacements, just to rush through these, Cunningham South for England, although he did get injured, he brought some real good power off of the bench, with Don Brandt doing much of the same. Danny Kerr, when his 100th cap came on, I was very frustrated that he kicked the ball away in a very good attacking position, but unfortunately enough, England got back into that attacking position and he played the phases really nicely and then gave Marcus Smith a good ball to keep the drop goal. And then the man himself, Marcus Smith, who won England the game in the dying minutes, fair play to him, stepped up under the pressure, albeit under penalty advantage, and won the game. Ireland, Kelleher came on and he didn't seem to affect the line-out darts, which had been a problem, which was frustrating from Andy Farrell's point of view, with Henderson also coming on to try and shore up the line-out, and they didn't quite manage to do that. Conor Murray came on at scrum half. Frustratingly for a lot of Irish fans, kicked the ball away. There's a big debate, should they have played the phases and then kicked it, or should they have just held on to it for the whole duration left of the game and kick it out? I think there's no perfect scenario there. If Ireland had gone off feet at the ruck, it would have been an England penalty and 3 points. But if they kicked it away, they were giving England another opportunity to attack. A very difficult one to get right. And then Frawley, a decent performance, I have to say, coming off of the bench, although I think he did pick up a knock as well. So yeah, lots of Irish bruises throughout the game, but it was a very good watch. I thought there was some very good passages from both teams. I think England surprised Ireland with their physicality, which is probably warrants some of the slightly elevated scores here. Just because a team totals more points doesn't mean they're the better team on the day necessarily. It's all down to individual performances and how they work together. But please do let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know if you don't agree. I'm happy to debate it, and you're probably right, to be honest. So yeah. But yeah, until the next video, I'll see you later, guys. Take care.